35 years ago, I had my first lucid alien dream, and then I didn't have them for a while. They started again when I was 30. They were fantastic. No harm, no fear, no scariness, just an expansion of my mind. It was outstanding. All right, I have an alien story for you. So I've always been a lucid dreamer and could remember my dreams for the morning, the day, or a couple days. But this dream is 35 years ago. It struck me, I even get the chills right now, it struck me as quite a different thing. So here's the backstory. When I was 19, I was working with my sister and her brother-in-law photographing hunter-jumper horses. And they had an old 1950-something Greyhound bus that they converted into a motorhome. And so it had, a couch in the front and had a bedroom in the back, and it's kind of this hallway, and it was stick shift, and it was great. We got lost because this was before GPS. It was in New Mexico, which is only in the Southwest. So we're kind of pissed and tired and not able to find the, they called it a horse park. Basically, it was kind of a big fairground just with a bunch of fences. So in the middle of the night, we find it, we're exhausted, and we're like, oh, for God's sake. There was no one else in the parking lot. We didn't even know if we were in the right place. No lights, this, that, and the other. We just pull up in this, it was like the X-Files. We pull up in this bus, kind of the dust goes by us, the headlights, and we see it, and it was like just, in the hydraulics of the bus settle, and we're like, talk to you in the morning. When we traveled, I would sleep on the couch. There was like a table and a thing that pulled out towards the front of the bus, and my sister, Amy, and Richard, her husband at the time, and Mishmash, their little, they called it a web-footed boxer chow. It was this beautiful little tiger of a dog, small body but big dog. Now this dog was quite special. This was the type of dog that really looked out for them, was always letting them know about unique things. As one time there was, they came into their bedroom and the dog, this was not on the bus, but the dog was kind of just on the bed growling at the sheets. And they're like, come on, Misha, get down, get down. Well, it turns out that there was a scorpion under the sheets, a little baby scorpion. So this dog was like a little guardian angel. It was amazing. We're exhausted. Everybody says their goodnights. And I put my head down and it felt like I didn't even go to sleep. A few minutes later, it's a common story now, but 35 years ago, it wasn't. I see these little guys, these grays, now I know they're called grays, come onto the bus. There was 3 of them. They come onto the bus and they come like next to me on the couch, and I'm like, oh no, guys, like what's happening? And there was no communication. I just was floated off the bus. I remember I was like, I'm gonna hit the door. The door opens and then we go out. There's a part of it that I don't remember, but the next thing was we were like in a shuttle or something that went, I want to say on a larger ship, but it could have been another planet. I just don't know, because I remember that we were navigating over an extremely large city. It was just this beautiful lights. It was fantastic. And I was like, wow, what is this place? And I think it was a mothership. And I was thinking, how can a mothership be the size of a planet? This is pretty remarkable. There was this thing that came to my mind and said, do you have any questions? And I'm like, well, I have many, but one is, how do you guys build spaceships? And they said, well, we'll show you. And I can't remember if they showed me or they put an image in my mind in this dream. But what it was these 2, I want to call them 2 plates, if you will. They were very large. A piece of material would be put in the middle. And then there was these harmonic frequencies that occupied this space and this space, and then the piece would go in between and then it would shape. It was like, I associate it with magnets. And it was like, I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. I don't remember much more. It seemed to last for many hours. And then when I came back to the bus, I didn't wake up. I just sat up. My heart was like, duk, 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 duk. And I'm like, I gotta write this down. So I actually wrote the dream down. It's in a yellow notebook here somewhere that probably fills in some of the blanks that I had. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I was wide awake. I just sat there until the sun rose, and I was like, oh, I gotta tell my sister about this. This is very peculiar. So I said, hey, before you guys, I hear him getting up, and I said, before you guys get started, I gotta tell you what happened last night. I had this most peculiar dream. And so I'd relay the story to them. Now, Richard's like a 6'5" cowboy. Like, he was a tough guy. They're sitting there listening. And then I tell the story, and my sister looks at Richard, and Richard looks at him, and he's kind of a little bit pale. He didn't like that kind of story. And my sister says, well, it was very interesting last night because Misha sat on the edge of the bed and looked out into the hallway of the bus, and she just growled and growled and growled and growled, and we couldn't calm her down. We couldn't settle her down. Nothing. She would not be settled, and she wouldn't go anywhere. So I was like, oh, interesting. I don't know what happened. The thing is years later, later, I was in a bookstore with a friend, and there's a book called Communion. That was a Whitley, somebody wrote this book. And on the cover, it was the first time I saw a picture of this alien with this big head and the eyes. It's now very common, but then it wasn't. And I looked at it, I'm like, I know this face. I was like, what is this? What is this? So I bought the book and I read it, but it was full of these terrible experiences that this guy had, and I didn't have any of those terrible. It was a journey of beauty and expansion. It was quite something different for me, at least the part that I remember. With that said, I wished for more of those dreams. To me, it was terribly exciting. When I was 30, I was living in another house in the country. I say another house in the country, meaning another rural area. And I was living by myself for several years. It was like my Walden Pond time. It was me. And I started having these UFO dreams, but they were very different. And I remember them being so exciting that before I would go to bed, I would lay down and I was like, oh, please let me have a UFO dream. Please let me have a UFO dream. And sometimes I would have them and they were really spectacular. I remember standing up in the bed and looking out the window and there's these lights down on the hill. And before I had read anything other than seeing that cover of the book, I actually didn't read the whole book. I thought, I don't agree with this story. I would go on different spaceship dreams. On one spaceship dream, I was rising up and I came up through these bay doors, and I was so scared that when the doors closed, they were going to cut my silver cord, which is associated with astral travel. And they're like, no, don't worry about that. It's not going to be cut. And I was in this, I don't know, this vehicle or this shuttle or something. And again, I was looking over a large area, but wherever I looked, the area turned into a windshield. So it's like what was not translucent turned into translucency. And on that ship, I didn't see any people. There was just sort of a communication that I felt. On other ships, it was very particular. There was times when there were these tall, thin people in robes. I don't really know anything about them. There was other times where people just looked like I was on a Star Trek set, that they were very humanistic. And there was a couple times where I had some medical things. And I remember when I was in this medical room, I was quite scared because there was something, it doesn't matter, I won't say, but something was going to happen. I was like, oh, this is going to hurt, this is going to hurt, this is going to hurt. And they're like, no, it won't, don't worry. Contrary to the other stories that I later heard about horrific things, this was more of like a checkup or something. It felt very casual. But that was a period of, I was encountering 3 or 4 maybe different types of entities in my dreams that were really spectacular, none of which were harmful or aggressive in any means. And I just was longing for more of those types of dreams. They actually just made my life feel expansive. I felt so much bigger the next day. I felt so much more like filled with possibilities and things like that. I haven't had too many spaceship dreams since. One recently where there was like this fiber optic cable, something that was like a wire that was going in here. I don't fear these dreams. They're, like I said, they're very exciting, and I don't know what they are or not. It was peculiar that I held on to that dream for 35 years. We have to find the yellow notebook. That has all the dreams written in it. It's this little floppy yellow thing that I kept in high school with some very bad poetry. So, that's my alien dream story.